So for the rest of the refinements we're going to need on this walk cycle, it doesn't really matter if you're using a cycle in place or a forward progression cycle. Where there is a difference, I'll point it out in the video and show you both ways of dealing with it. But at this point, either one is perfectly fine, whichever one makes more sense to you. And I'm going to go ahead and start refining this thing by adding in the ups and the downs. So these are in the Animator Survival Kit, but I also wanted to pull up a piece of video reference, which in general it's a great idea to use for all of your animation needs. But here, this is a real person walking. Of course, this person is aware of how they're walking, so they're probably not walking extremely naturally, but it still gives you a good sense mechanically of how it works. So the thing that I want to focus on right now are the up and down positions. So we'll deal with the feet later, and also sort of know that this is a very slow motion walk. So when I go frame to frame, just by pressing the period or comma keys here, it's going to progress, but it's like this is not, we're not matching this timing here. So what I want to show is, you can see by the grid where the head is, this is about contact position. Maybe contact position would be a little bit more like this, but there's a, that's the contact right there, and see the head coming down. So the head goes down several frames after contact, and then it starts going back up. So here now it's going back up. There's a passing position, and you can see that the passing position looks a little different. That the contact leg is still bent and is still coming straight, but the head is still moving up. The leg's fully straight. It's already up on the ball of the foot, and the head is high at the highest right about there, and then it starts coming back down to the next contact position. So those are what we're doing here. And just estimating this, again, this is slow motion, so you can't go directly on it. But what I'd say here is a couple frames after, we want to bring this body down a little bit more. And here you can see this is the motion of the hips that we keyed in initially. And all that's happening here is at the contact position, that's the lowest point, and then it goes up to the passing position, and then back down to the contact. So we need to add these ups and downs in here. All right, so basically I'll just go to frame 2 here, and I'll pull this down. So it doesn't necessarily have to be frame 2. You can kind of play around with this. But I find that frame 2 is good because it leaves a little bit of interpolation time, but you get a sharper fall off through this step down, and that helps you feel the weight a bit. Right? So just a sharper fall off there, and then it'll step back up. And again, in that passing position, the way that we had it was the leg was straight. It doesn't really have to be. It can be. It can get to straight a little earlier, but really what we're looking at is a couple frames after that. That's the highest point. So I can kind of pull that up to where it's almost straight, something like this, and that ends up creating a curve that looks like this. So this curve here, where it sort of gets close to the top on the passing position and then holds that, that's going to work out well. And I would say probably what we could do is just favor that a little bit just by grabbing those two at the same time and just kind of bringing them down a little bit, so you can see that we get a nicer curve here. And then I'll just match in what's going on with these frames on the next step as well. Now, just to be clear, if you have the exact same motion left to right, you don't have to cycle from one to the end of your cycle. You could cycle to the center and then just let that do its thing. That's perfectly fine. It's already cycling with offset, so that would work perfectly fine. I don't have to do this curve twice. If you want to have variation, you need to add that in. So let me show you what I'm talking about there. So in this case, this creates the full cycle. So if I just got rid of these keys, you'll see it'll repeat this part over here. And you can see at the repeat, we probably don't want this. We don't probably want the descent to come down slow way down and then speed back up. We want that to be a little bit more consistent. So I'll grab both of those keys, grab the handles, and then rotate those. And again, a little bit of a step down is probably a good thing. I want this to kind of go from a little bit shallower angle to a little steeper angle here, and that way we'll feel that drop onto that leg a little bit more. It doesn't have to be extreme. You could certainly go something like this, and it's probably still going to work fine, but just a little bit of something like this might work. So let's just take a look. So because the cycle is exactly the same left to right in my particular case, that makes the cycle just continue on. So you can already see that you have a much stronger feel of weight just by adding that up and down position. All right, so So again, if you did have asymmetry, all you would do is key that in for the other side, and then your loop would work exactly the same from 0 to 24. But because this loop cycles at 12, it's no problem here. And it looks like it's not cycling here, but that's just because I haven't cycled the input. So let me just go back up to the object here and do pre-infinity cycle with offset, and you'll see that that feeds in exactly the same way. Right, so that would basically take care of the ups and downs, and I'm just going to break these up into little chunks so that they're easy to find what you're looking for. So that's it for this video.